is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Let's go, baby.
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on the break.
With Nick Eatman, David Hellman, Ambar Garcia, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Wednesday, March 4th, 2020, Season 15, Episode number 117. Welcome to another edition of The Break. We are live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star, and we got a lot of things we're going to get into today. We're going to talk a lot about Combine last week. All three of my co-hosts were there, and we'll be talking some about the time they spent with Jerry, some of the time they spent in Indy there with Mike McCarthy. And then some general observations about the Combine, different players that are there, just different things they saw. So we're going to catch you guys up on all those things. How's everybody feel today?
I feel wonderful, Derek. It's
Great.
nice to see you. It's nice to talk to you and do the show with you, and just thrilled to be here.
I know you guys have been doing things like making big moves. I've been back here at the office the whole time, and so I've missed you guys, but I'm glad to have you back on the air. And I want to jump right in. Let's get started. I've got 7 different topics. Actually, Nick, you wrote an article coming out of the Combine that listed 10 things that came from Jerry's talk that you thought were worth mentioning, great observations. I took 7 of those things and threw them out here, and I'm just going to throw out the observation, and then I want you guys to just kind of jump in and talk about it, because I thought a lot of the things that Jerry talked about created some interesting discussion points. So let's start first with his talk on the CBA. Jerry basically said he voted for the CBA, and in voting for the CBA, he understood that the benefits were more about the NFL and the long-term interest of the NFL, and were not necessarily about the short-term interest of the Cowboys. Explain that statement, and let's talk a little bit about it.
Well, I'd rather I'm going to be careful with that. I think that there's a lot of things going on there. I mean, Jerry got put into the Hall of Fame, so he's a patriot. I mean, he's big for the league, and this is a league deal. It's not just for the Cowboys. He's trying to let everybody know that this is big for the NFL. This is very important for all the players, not just the Cowboys. There's parts that don't really work for the Cowboys because of the transition tag will be gone, and he can't get Amari Cooper and Dak to do that. But I also think it's very important for Jerry to establish that he is, when he's in there voting, he's voting for the NFL, not just for the Cowboys. So I think it's a tough balance there. I think he was trying to send a message there.
Yeah, I think he was trying to. It was a convincing sales pitch, and that doesn't mean it wasn't true, but everybody who follows the NFL on any kind of close level knows that Jerry is a very powerful and meaningful member of the community, and when he endorses the CBA, it's kind of like, oh, okay, like the most powerful owner in the league wants the CBA to go through. What else is new? And I think part of that was he's sitting there saying, look, this isn't just about what favors me. Like this deal is going to hurt us on some points as well. I still think it's in the best interest in the league as a whole. And I think he wanted to get that message across. That's like, I'm not voting completely in my own self-interest. This deal will grow the money available to the league and to the players, for that matter. He made a huge point. I actually thought it was really telling. He basically had a script. He had a sheet of paper with the salaries of his players, and not the DeMarcus Lawrences of the world, but the guys on their rookie deals. He's saying under this CBA, Leighton Vander Esch would be making this much more money in year 3 of his deal than he is right now. And he went down the line of this guy would be doing this guy would be doing this. And I think he's trying to sell people on the idea that this isn't just good for the league, it's good for the everyman player. Mm-hmm. And it's not just good for me, Jerry Jones. And I mean, I think, we get on the bus with him every year at the Combine, and he talks for a while. He was asked one question about the CBA, and he talked for about 35 minutes uninterrupted. So he had a lot of stuff he wanted to say about it, for sure.
I'm sure.
And also, the answers were kind of scripted because he had some notes, which is, I think, maybe unusual for the bus.
Very.
The questions were scripted as well. So there were some questions that were asked to be asked, I think.
He also had that morbid line, too, of saying, like, this is probably my last contract, which Could
Yeah.
be right, or it was just something that it was kind of interesting
Definitely
to hear.
it was a little dark.
It makes it awkward for me when I hear, especially when I hear a person referring to themselves in that way. Like, it does seem a little bit off.
But a CBA
awkward.
lasts 10 years.
Yeah,
so
I get it.
It's a long time.
10
totally
years for
get it.
him to be in the room really being negotiating. He'll let Steven do all that while he's hanging out.
But as we all know, like, if you've spent any time around Jerry, it's hard to think of a day when he won't be in the room. Like, he's just,
I know.
as old as he is, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying for his age, like, he's still a very sharp man, still very much involved in a lot of things. It's hard to imagine that coming to an end. You know what I'm saying? That just seems weird. It just seems weird.
Sure.
But I do want to say this. Just looking at all of this, I think that's the interesting part for me about the whole CBA is we've seen a lot of different big players. I'm talking about the faces of the league come out and say things that kind of basically pointed to the fact that they didn't necessarily believe this was the best deal for the league. But when you start thinking about all those other players, and I think that's kind of the point of the CBA, and maybe the point that Jerry was trying to make is this deal is not so much about those players as much as it is those players that have that average 3 to 5 year career and them making a lot more money over the course of their careers.
I was going to say it's no different than politics. It is different than that. But, I mean, when you have different administrations come in, some are more, bigger for middle class than it is for higher class. That's kind of what this seems to be.
Yeah.
Is this the core players? And a lot of those people are getting votes as well. So it's really interesting to see who your player rep is. Mm-hmm. If Russell Wilson and J.J. Watt are your player rep, then that's one thing. But if Nate Solder's your player rep and he kind of understands what it's good for, I think that's what's kind of the different dynamic here.
I would hope, and I agree with you, but I would hope, is Russell Wilson their player rep in Seattle?
I don't know.
But
I don't know, yeah.
I would hope he's talking to the guys in his locker room.
Sure.
Like, you're not just voting for you're voting for the other 50 guys that are there.
You are, but at the same time, we know how this goes. And you mentioned politics. It's the same thing from this respect. I mean, it's going to still be a situation where whoever is that rep, they're still, when they're talking to the players in their locker room, they're certainly giving their opinions. And so whatever their lean is on this, they're probably going to have a little bit, not even a little bit, they're probably going to have a bias in how they present it to their players, and they're probably going to tell them the information and highlight the information that they think is most important and probably skirt over the information they think is a little less important, although it may be very important to those players. So either way, the point is they got to a 17-14, I think, was the breakdown. Yes to no.
I think it was 17-13 and one
abstention.
abstained. Yeah.
And so it's going to the full body, and at this point, the full body will have an opportunity to be able to vote on it. And we'll see what happens. They say they'll probably take a couple weeks, but it looks like at least there's going to be a vote here in the next couple weeks. And just from my own personal point of view, I hope it gets done because I just don't like labor unrest. It just makes things tougher.
Byron Jones.
So what happens if
Very interesting, right?
what happens if this goes past March 18th and Byron Jones
There's
is
gotta be a
not with the
backup.
Cowboys on March 19th?
Well, I'm assuming they make a vote really quickly as to replace him with
I'm
somebody
pretty-
else, I guess.
Crawford.
I believe that there's like an alternate, kind of like hockey has an alternate captain if your captain doesn't play. Right? You see that?
Yes,
I'm a hockey
very
guy now.
impressed.
Only problem is
Miss
there's
Universe.
so many guys that are free agents.
Runner-up.
Sure.
Like that guy might also be a free agent. Who knows?
I bet you there's a guy under contract who would assume that.
I'm guessing so.
Zach Martin, Travis Frederick, Tyrone Crawford.
Yeah, I'm guessing so.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. And there's so many levels to it. Like, the owners clearly seem like they're appealing to the everyman players. You can grow your salary by 50%, and they're going to relax substance abuse testing. And guys, it will be far easier to smoke weed and play in the NFL than it would have been under the old deal. You're also going to have a 17-game season. You're also, from the sounds of it, it sounds like the owners are going to have a lot more power in the holdout arena. Like, basically, it won't be able to happen, which is something that would give me pause if I was a bigger name player. But I'm curious to see, I thought I read that they were going to try to vote on it this week, but it doesn't seem like it's moving in that direction right now. But if I'm the Cowboys, I'm like sitting here like, hey, do I have one tag or two? Can
Right.
we get this thing decided right now so I know what I'm working with on March 18th?
Yep. All right, let's go on to the next topic. This one was, Jerry basically said what I think we all know, which is Dak's going to be here It's really just a matter of them getting the deal done. What are your thoughts on where that all stands? And after talking to him, do you have any more insight as to where you think this is all going, or what may be the holdup in this whole situation?
I think the CBA might be some of the holdup there, but I mean, it's all the same. It's just he just says it in a different way. I mean, sometimes they say, well, he's a franchise quarterback that can get the job done, or this time he says it's no different than my son. Like my son's not going anywhere, so figure it out. That's kind of basically what he said. He called Dak like his son.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like
I've already referred to you like that. I mean, it just happens. It's part of it.
No, not really.
I think the CBA is 100% at this point. I'm not saying, they might not be close. It's not like they're ready to put the name on the paper, but I don't think they want to decide anything until they see what they're working with. Again, not only how many tags do you have, but if the projections that we're reading are true, the salary cap could literally balloon. Like they're talking about a $400 million salary cap within the next 3 years. How much
Was it 3 or 7?
Over the course of the deal, it'll get even bigger. But there are some people projecting that the cap could jump by as much as 50% in the next 3 or 4 years, which typically it jumps 10% per year. Mm-hmm. You could see some massive jumps. So if you're about to sign a quarterback to a huge deal, don't you kind of want to have an idea of what your salary cap growth will look like over the years of the deal? Because I know I would.
And that's actually an interesting point, because I saw this morning there was a report coming from, I can't remember the guy's name. It was a guy from ESPN. But he said, according to some of his sources in Dak's camp, they were actually pushing for a much shorter term. A 3-year deal was what he threw out there. And when you talk about it from the standpoint of what you're saying, that would make a ton of sense for them to say, hey, let's shorten the term on this deal, because we could be looking up 4 years from now, and because of the salary cap, I could be pushing 50 easy, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the part that makes this a little difficult. And for the Cowboys, they may be looking like, hey, we want stability. Like it's our quarterback position. We want to be able to have a longer term deal. And by the way, when you're dealing with that much money, we want to be able to extrapolate that signing bonus over a larger period of time so it hits less of our cap. There's a lot of things. So really the holdup could also be a part of that too, where you're talking about, Dak's side pushing for a shorter term, Cowboys pushing for a longer term.
If they're also looking, if guaranteed money is not the big deal there, because and I think it has been. Guaranteeing money has been one of the things that has separated all of these contracts. But it needs to be average per year if they're only going to go for the 3-year deal. But I don't think that's a bad move for the Cowboys, because there's some people that wonder if Dak is he really the long-term future? I mean, of the team. I mean, He's been really good at times, but I mean, I think a 3-year deal might be good for the Cowboys too. Just like his agent says, well, we want to get a part of that $50 million. The Cowboys could say, well, we think he's pretty good, but what if he's not? I don't think it's a terrible move.
I don't at all. I love short deals, honestly. Like this whole. That's how, the Cowboys didn't maximize finding Dak as well as they could have, because they were stuck paying Tony Romo on a 6-year deal. They had to pay 2 years worth of insane cap hits that they got no play out of. So the shorter the deal, I love that, because it's just less of a commitment on your salary cap.
3 years, 100. Yeah, just
33. Honestly, I would be all in on that. Let me ask you this: would you be willing to guarantee all of that?
Yes. For a guy that never gets hurt, sure.
Knock on wood.
I mean, yeah, there's risk involved in these types of things, but it is what it is.
But that's you know what? That's
why you do a shorter
deal. That's the
deal,
guaranteed money that they want, right? That's the base. I mean, that's kind of the ballpark of what they're wanting.
All right, we just solved this thing for him. Somebody run upstairs.
102.
Send a text message.
102.
102. You want to go to 102?
34.
Yeah.
That's 34, right?
Yeah,
34
I can't do math, but yeah, it sounds about right.
102 divided by 3, I think, is 34. Okay. I don't know. But
100 to 105, somewhere in that range.
Journalism, yeah.
Somewhere in that range on a 3-year deal, with most of it, if not all of it, guaranteed.
Steven, we got
sign him up.
It really it gives me anxiety to think about, and obviously I don't have any control over the situation. But so it's Wednesday. The franchise tag deadline is 8 days away. The league year starts 6 days after that, so the league year is 2 weeks from today. Am I right on that? Today's the 4th. Yeah. So You got 2 weeks till the new league year. You got 8 days until you have to use the tag. You can't use it anymore after next Thursday. And the CBA is not approved. Dak and Amari are sitting there. You don't know right now if you can tag them both or just one. It stresses me out just talking
What
about it.
I don't know is what the rule is. I've heard different things. What the rule is if you give Amari the transition tag before the CBA has been approved, and then what happens to that
I think you
tag?
have to take one away.
As I understand it, if a new CBA is agreed to, the other tag just
disappears.
That's what-
Like it never
And
happened.
all of a sudden,
It's
that guy
never there.
becomes an immediate free agent.
I mean,
That's a problem.
If the league year has started, yeah,
that's a problem,
Which
yeah.
that's enough. Well, although and now I'm talking out of my depth, but I believe if the new league year starts before a CBA is approved, then you would go through this final year on the old CBA. Like you can't enact a CBA once a new league year has started. Right?
Are you sure about that?
No, I'm
And then
not.
that goes back to
I
the
don't
problem
think so.
of how
I don't
much
know
do you
if
pay
that- I don't
Dak
know about
and leave, you don't give him a new contract and he just keeps the franchise tag, but then does he hold out? Does he not go to training camp? What happens there?
There's so many reasons why they should get Dak done.
Right.
They just got to do it because of give Amari what Amari needs the franchise tag. I think for everybody's comfort level of who this guy is and what he's done, he needs the franchise tag because one more year to show because it's scary because contract years usually give people their best year and if he's got all this money, I don't know. I mean, is he going to be on the field on 4th and 8 in the biggest game of the season? Because that was a contract year.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, and I know people are scared in this building. They're scared to give him that much money because they don't really know what he's thinking sometimes.
See, I could find the flip side of that though, is because he's clearly not purely motivated by money. Like he said it 85 times in the build up to last season. He's like, that'll take care of itself. He's like, I'm making more than enough on the 5th year of my deal. Like he said that.
Yeah.
How often do you hear that from football players where he's like, they're paying me $13 million. That's plenty. I'm not worried about it. Nobody's ever said that. He had a few really bad moments. 4th and 8 against the Eagles. Not to knock the guy for being hurt, but the Jets game was bizarre.
Yeah.
For him to do that stuff during a contract
A lot
year,
of road games.
at least I'm just like, well, Amari's Amari regardless. He's not putting on a front because he wants more money.
And by the way, these are the
Yeah.
kinds of things that people said about him in Oakland. Like
Yeah.
these are the
Yeah.
kinds of things that have haunted him, if you want to call it that, since he's been in the NFL. So I don't know that that's going to necessarily change. He's not going to turn around tomorrow and become Dez mentality, right? That's just not who he is.
I can't imagine.
Unless Dez was here and helped him.
We'll get to that. Go ahead, Dez.
I can't imagine him becoming a vastly different person because he got a second contract.
I agree with that.
But I do. If I could plan this thing out like perfectly, just get a deal done with Dak by next Thursday at whatever time, probably 3. That's usually the deadline, and then tag Amari.
That shouldn't be hard. We already told them how to sign
No, I know.
Dak.
Like, just
It's
it's
done.
so simple.
I mean,
Just throw
they
all
should
this
have already
money
gotten
around.
3 text messages from all 3 of you upstairs saying, "Oh yeah, the break has said we should go ahead and do this deal. Here's the framework."
Steven, do you
I
have
sent it, but it
15
doesn't
minutes?
say delivered.
It's not going through.
It doesn't say delivered. Is that bad?
I don't know.
But
Phone's off.
We'll see.
Blocked.
it's absolutely fascinating to think what happens if something isn't agreed to by Thursday because Dak will be tagged.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones. The direct quote was, I will not have his rights for a single minute.
Minute.
There's no doubt about who will be tagged if it comes to it.
Yeah.
But if you tag Dak, and I mean, so you could tag them both next Thursday. But then if a CBA is agreed to,
Yeah.
Amari Cooper's headed for free agency.
And
that's scary.
And I'm sure it doesn't. It might say this in the rules. Can you move one tag to the other?
Yeah, see,
Move
that's what I don't know
franchise
either. Like,
instead of
if you
transition?
should get a deal done with Dak,
I think you
then
transition Dak.
I don't.
Well, but if you do that, do you risk the possibility of losing him?
Well,
Theoretically, yes.
I'm just saying. By that time, you figure out which deal can we get a deal done with quicker, Mari or.
I will say this. This thought occurred to me too, and I'm always the guy that's like, well, they're gone in free agency, and Amari Cooper is a fantastic player, and you would think somebody would offer him so much money that he would never come back, but we just spent a couple minutes talking about how he's a different cat. So
And he's mentioned many times how much he loves Dallas and he wants to be here.
I could absolutely foresee him hating free agency and just being like, no, I'm cool with like me and Dallas are going to work something out. Like, that's not crazy.
All right, so we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we got a lot more to hit. We're going to talk about Jason Witten, Dez Bryant, Robert Quinn, Byron Jones, and Leighton Vander Esch. Jerry had some interesting thoughts there. We'll do that when we come right back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
Your new apartment's big. Such a great deal.
It's okay.
Just okay? What's not to...
It's right above the subway!
Well, I bet you don't even notice it after the...
That's my neighbor, Angus!
A deal that's just okay is not okay. Get a great deal with America's Best Network. Come into an AT&T store to find out how to get one of our popular smartphones for $0 down. Based on GWS One score, September 2019.
Do you want the most interesting, up-to-the-minute Dallas Cowboys news straight from the Star in Frisco? How about exclusive and on command? That's right, news and nuggets you can't find anywhere else. With our exclusive Cowboys content on Alexa, you can have all the answers, secrets, stories, and more. What's Stephen Jones thinking during a game? What's Joe Looney's favorite pregame meal? We take your questions to Cowboys players and coaches, and you can hear the answers directly back to you. Just say, Alexa, open Dallas Cowboys.
Whether you're into being a part of this or more into something like this, SeatGeek has the tickets to the events you love. It's the easiest way to find, buy, and sell tickets. Plus, with their Deal Score technology, they'll recommend the best seats in the house at the best value. So the next time you're craving this, download the SeatGeek app and let's go. SeatGeek.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again for Tailgating with the OtterBox Boys.
OtterBox, the company that builds wildly overprotective phone cases?
The one and only. But cases are just the start. OtterBox is the official outfitter of tailgating.
If they can keep my phone safe, what can they do for my parking lot party?
How about protecting your beverages from suboptimal drinking temperatures with their elevation tumblers? And OtterBox elevation tumblers come in 3 sizes: a 10-ouncer, a 20-ouncer, and even a 64-ounce growler.
Check out all the colors and sizes of their elevation tumblers at otterbox.com.
Back to the break.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. We're talking about Jerry's conversation last week with the media. There were so many little nuggets that he dropped in that. We're going through and we're going to talk about all those different nuggets. Let's start now with the conversation he had about Jason Witten. Jerry says he wants him back. He thinks he can still play, but he wants him at a different role. Talk to me about what you think that means, and if you think that's something that Jason Witten would accommodate.
Sounds like he's not going to be a starter. That's what it seems like. I mean, you have to read between the lines there, but it's not really adding up. I kind of wish people would just say it, but they're not. I mean, McCarthy didn't say it, and he didn't. Jerry just said, "We think, I still think he can play, and I don't want him to play anywhere else." And Jason has said he wants to play, so it was like, well,
credit, like, it was great. Like, Nick followed the script right from the break. Like, literally, Jerry said, I think he can still play. He wants to play, and it would be a shame if he played for anybody else. And Nick was like, well, you own the team, so what's the hold up?
I didn't say you own the team.
He was like, well, if all of that stuff is true, then why isn't he back?
I said, you want him back. Jason wants to be back. What's the holdup?
Did you have Jason on speed dial?
No.
Y'all talking before
Do you think
that?
it's
Jason
his
was on
staff?
speakerphone in his pocket.
It's like,
Ask him this.
Hit him with this.
Ask him this. No. And then he said McCarthy's name, but he didn't really say that he was the holdup. He basically said Jason is the holdup. Jason has to realize he has to accept this role. That's
so essentially he has to accept the role of being a backup and not a starter.
Yeah,
that's what Jerry
This would be the first time in 16 years.
ever.
Because that's the question. Do you think Jason will accept that kind of role?
See, no, I think the problem. I don't know if this is a problem. Yeah, I guess it is, because you kind of self-awareness is always a problem in anything in life, and I think that Jason could probably tell the coach, listen, I'll sign this, but after the end of training camp, if I'm not better than Blake Jarwin or whoever, you should play the best guy. And even if it's clear to everyone in the world that Blake Jarwin is better, it won't be to Jason. Mm-hmm. And that, I think it was to Antonio Gates. Gates knew that. This guy's better. Henry's better. I'll just kind of do my thing, whatever. And Gates, I guess, was fine with that. I don't think Witten will be fine with that, and I don't think he'll see it the same way. But
the only thing I wonder if he would is he's made it quite clear that whenever he is done playing, he wants to get into coaching. So I'm wondering if this is kind of an entryway into being, I mean, he already is like a mentor and the role model and a leader in that locker room and to the tight ends and other positions. But I wonder if he could see this as like, this could be a learning opportunity for me about getting ready to kind of be a coach.
And I'm not 100% sure the door has been closed on him coaching this year. I don't think that's off the table yet. I still think they're just evaluating everything. It wouldn't surprise me. Well, it would surprise me, but it's not going to be a shock if he is on the coaching staff this year.
Well, some of the things I've heard, and you and I have had some talks. I've had some talks with some other people who are close to Jason. It doesn't seem to me like he's looking for learning opportunities to become a coach. Like, it looks like to me when he's going to be a coach, he wants to go in and be a coach. Like, and he ain't talking about I don't want to be a an offensive assistant. Like, he wants to be a coach.
You're saying when he goes to Disney World, he gets the fast pass?
That's exactly right. That's my expectation for what he wants.
Yeah.
Based upon the conversations I've had with different people. So, again, I don't know that this works. Just based on everything you guys are saying and what you thought you were hearing from Jerry, I don't know if this works. I've never seen Jason in a situation where he was willing to do that, where he was willing to take a lesser than role. Like, he was willing to not be the guy. And so if that's what the expectation is going in, like they haven't even played a down in the OTAs, if that's the expectation going in, you're going to be a backup, I don't know that he'd be willing to sign up for that. I mean, we'll see, but I don't know that he'd be willing to sign up.
Maybe they sign him for another 1 year and it's you battle through training camp. But then again, if he's not the starter, I don't know what the repercussions of that are.
I just don't see the point at all. And I think I said this the last time we were all here, is like, we're having a 5-minute conversation about a guy who would be the backup tight end. Like, even we'd get into the weeds with Cowboys, and even we don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, we've never spent more than like 30 seconds at a time talking about Dalton Schultz. So,
nor should we or would we.
And so
how long he's been on the field.
Case in point. So I just, if this is what it's going to be, and he's not going to come back to be the starter, which it does not appear to be the case, nor do I think it should be, just flip the page. That's my personal opinion.
That's easy to say, but there's a mural over there in that part of the building that sits up there. It's, I don't know, maybe about
but not on his
30
watch.
feet high. I just don't, that's why this whole discussion is even being had.
But and that is also why, when you say flip the page, whose book is it? Is it Jerry's book or is this McCarthy's book? Because I think there's something there that could he be detrimental to the team, to what the message that they're trying to do? Does he really want a clean slate, or do you want a guy in here that's kind of wanted your job? He wanted to be the head coach of the Cowboys. So I think those are things McCarthy has to kind of factor into all this. I'm not saying Jason would be bad. I mean, I think he's great. I don't think he'd be bad for the locker room or anything like that. But I think if you're trying to send a message and your own message, maybe you want a bunch of fresh voices and not a guy that's been here. That's why I could see why McCarthy would say, I don't want one of the greatest tight ends to ever play the game.
Outside of the fact that he just may think, honestly, like there's a better tight end there. That may be the blunt truth of it.
Here's another part of this factor, too. When you look at the Packers teams, he's done a lot of different things when he was with the Packers, but a lot of those tight ends were really athletic. They were athletic-type guys. And I think he looks at it like, I don't need that complete tight end because I got a fullback that plays a lot. More so, he doesn't have a finesse fullback like the Cowboys have a finesse Olawale-type fullback. So that might be your difference there, is that I want athletic tight ends, and I want, really, if I need someone to wham the nose, it'll be a fullback.
Yeah.
I wonder, too, Witten said at his award ceremony, they'll talk about this after the Combine. Well, it's after the Combine. Maybe they'll wait and see what they can accomplish beforehand,
Free agency draft.
Find something in free agency, maybe look at the draft, and if the position's not any better in late April, maybe you give him a call.
Because there's no rush for Jason, obviously.
None whatsoever.
Do you think he would play somewhere else if they don't come to an
I think
agreement?
So. I think Jason's one of those guys that loves football. And so I don't think he would ever want to necessarily do it. But I think if his hand was forced where it's like either you take this or nothing, and he felt like that wasn't the right move for him. And by the way, there was another team where they were like, we'll bring you in and we'll let you be that starting guy. We think we could value your experience, and our tight end position doesn't have much there. I think Jason would consider, especially if it's a team that has a shot at winning a championship. Because remember, you only get, once your career's done, you can't go back and get a championship. You can have all the accolades in the world, but you'll be that guy that when all the other Hall of Famers are there together and they all have on their rings, you'll be the guy with only your wedding band on. So I'm just saying, like, that matters to guys. I think it matters a lot to those caliber of football players.
Got to be a meaningful role. Doesn't necessarily have to be the starter, but it's got to be a meaningful role. And it's got to be a team that's got a chance to do something.
A real chance.
How long is that list?
What's meaningful to you then if he's not starting?
Being on the field for at least 30% of the snaps, having a chance to catch.
Play in the red zone.
Yeah, having a chance to catch 20 to 40 balls, have an opportunity to score some touchdowns, contribute to wins.
Do you think he would take a backup role with Kansas City or San Francisco?
Yes, but do they want their guys don't come off the field?
I get that. I'm just saying, do you think that winning a championship is that important to him where he would say, I'll take a team like Kansas City where I feel like they can be in the championship every game, every year, and I know they got a solidified tight end, but I can be his backup, and I feel like it'll get me a championship.
See, that's kind of my point, though, is yes, I do think he would take that, but I don't think that role exists on the Kansas City Chiefs because Kelsey's not coming off the field in the red zone for Jason Witten.
Very true.
And neither is George Kittle.
Yeah.
So, again, got to be a meaningful role. I don't see that in San Francisco or Kansas City. Got to be a team that could win. I shouldn't even say this out loud, but like New England. If New England wanted him to go in there and be one of their 5 tight ends, assuming Tom Brady's still there, I think he probably go for that.
Yeah.
But I just don't think the list is very long. And people are going to say the Giants all day long. Are they contenders? First of all, how much is he going to get on the field behind Evan Ingram? And also, are they going to be any good?
Right.
So I just think you're probably talking about 2 or 3 teams max where he would be interested in pursuing that opportunity.
All right. Let's go on to the next topic. Dez Bryant. Jerry says that he has not dismissed the possibility of bringing back Dez. Says he thinks about it often in the shower. And so what do you think? You think Dez is a possibility to show back up with the Dallas Cowboys?
I do. I think at least through camp. I think you give him a shot.
No. That wasn't my question.
Oh, on the roster?
No. My question is, do you think he has a real shot of the Cowboys bringing him back?
That's what she said.
I thought she said she thinks he should come back.
No,
she said she thought he had a chance.
I think he has a chance. I think they give him a workout, and I think you see if he still has it.
Okay.
I think some of that, too, is kind of the combination of Jason Witten and going back to Amari of if they sign Amari and they want Amari to be their guy and they're still liking what they're seeing from Michael Gallup and the growth he's making, what kind of role is Dez going to have? And is he going to be okay with that role if they get Amari and Amari's that go-to guy? Or I think it'll depend on that. But, I mean, he seems to be in shape. He's very adamant about wanting to get back in the league, wanting to play for the Cowboys. I don't see why you wouldn't at least bring him in for a workout and see what he can do. He's right here. He's at the Star working out right in the facility next door.
Yeah.
You want to jump on this first?
I don't. I just...
Okay. I'll do it. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't cutting you off.
No, go ahead.
First of all, I want to stand up for the boss real quick because the shower comment is classic Jerry, and of course it went...
But it wasn't meant like that, right?
I do all of my deepest thinking and problem solving in the shower. Like, that's where I try to tackle the stresses of my life.
Yeah.
So I understand what Jerry meant there. And I don't think it was meant in any kind of weird way.
Right. Yeah. No, I think everybody knows that. I think it's just fun.
People took it and ran with it.
For the break, when we go to break, I have a theory on that I think people need to be careful when they start saying that kind of stuff. They kind of insinuating that he was meaning anything else than what it was. I mean, like you said, that's when you're thinking.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think anybody was seriously doing it. It's just fun. Like, it's just fun.
He said
just classic.
It's just classic fun.
It would be on the cocktail napkins at his Hall of Fame party.
Exactly.
It already is because he said Troy Aikman is one of those guys that looks good in the shower.
Right.
Now, that's probably worse than That is.
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so.
He's the best.
All right, Dez. Do you want Dez back on the team?
It's not about what I want. Here's the thing.
Well, we're going to get to that question. The question is, do you think the Cowboys will have him back?
I have a couple of thoughts. Jerry hasn't dismissed it, and I mean, it starts with Jerry. So if he wants it, he can make it happen. But I think the people that are closer to the minutia of these things are like, they have taken a look at this and they're like, I don't think so. But then also, where is really the fit for this right now? And we don't know for sure what's going to happen with Amari. It sounds for all the world like they want Randall Cobb back, but that's not written in stone either. But where is it after you got those three? There's 8 million good wide receivers in this draft. I just don't see the use for a 32-year-old receiver coming off an Achilles injury who's not going to play special teams. And by the way, we've talked about how much more of a priority they want to make that this year. That was their problem last year. They had about 8 guys, veterans, who have highly specified roles who don't play special teams. So what you're telling me is like,
did the special teams suffer?
They were awful,
and everybody wanted to wonder, well, why is special teams so bad? But that's part of it. I mean, that's part of it, right?
A lot of guys that weren't on special teams.
And again, I love Dez so much. He was probably my favorite player to cover during the time that he was here.
Really?
Absolutely. You never knew what he was going to say. And he was friendly and electric, and it felt fun being around him all the time.
And he also, especially at training camp, he made practice fun.
He did.
You know, he made it like, this is kind of boring. It won't be if Dez is practicing and playing well and all that.
Yeah. He was like a Michael Irvin. What you heard of Michael Irvin and what he was to them in the 90s when it came to practice time.
Yeah.
And I never bought the theory that he was like this crazy distraction. We've covered that. We've beaten it into the ground more times than we can. But it doesn't sound like a super big positive to me to have the most visible fourth receiver in the NFL. Like a guy, he's active on Twitter. He is capable of, commanding the news cycle with what he says. And that just seems a little wild to me for a guy who you're hoping is going to play like 8 to 12 snaps a game and just have a very limited role in your offense.
I can't see how anybody, and you didn't do that, but anybody that would say on one hand, I don't think they need to bring back Witten, but then they would bring back Dez. I just feel like it's very similar to declining players, that are now not going to be the forefront of things. And is there a chance that because they're so used to a certain role that they may not be great accepting a different role?
Which, I mean, Dez came out and said, he's like, all I want is like the role that Witten had is, I'll take a back seat. I can come in the red zone. I can do this. I can do that. I get that. But like in the end, it's a young man's game. Like, why wouldn't I just go draft Devin Duvernay, a badass who runs a 4.39 out of Texas?
Take him.
He can be my slot guy / jet sweep / gadget / returner,
whatever you want to do.
And I'm paying him $600,000 a year for 4 years, as opposed to whatever 1 year vet sweetheart deal I got to do with Dez. It just doesn't seem like pragmatic roster building to me.
People love that storyline already with McCarthy about the catch-no catch game when he was still with the Packers. Could you imagine the question if they brought Dez back?
That kind of goes to my point, is like, how many fourth receivers in the league would have an 80-person press gaggle at their locker the first day they were available? Like, and it's not like Dez. It wouldn't, not like this like malevolent, like toxic situation, but it's just like, for lack of a better word, it's like a distraction you don't need. You're just like, why? Like, your fourth receiver should not be like the second most famous person on your team. That's strange to me.
So take me back a little bit, and for the sake of the listeners, take me back to when the Cowboys made the decision to let him go. What was the reason why they decided? What do you guys think were the major reasons why they let him go when they did? And let's put as a caveat that they let him go when they really didn't have a replacement option. Like, they went into that next year saying, we're going to do it by committee, and we're not going to have really a number one guy. Like, we're just going to have guys. We're just going to have some guys. So for them to be willing to say, we're going to move away from him for this other just kind of blob, why would they do that?
Dak Prescott. They wanted things to be Dak friendly.
Okay.
And Dak is a guy that he's not he's not the most accurate down the field passer. We know that. He's really good at a lot of things, but he needs a guy that can run routes. Okay, and Amari Cooper can run route. I mean, and Cobb can run. They run routes, and Gallup is getting there too. He's really good at it. That's never been a strong thing for Dez. And so I think there was too many times that you were trying to force the ball. And when he was younger, 25, 26, 27, he could just out-Dez you. I'm just going to go up and catch the ball because I'm better than you. He didn't do that anymore. Now you need to be a route runner. It's working for Larry Fitzgerald because he can run a route and he can still do that. And Jason Witten sort of got by doing it as well. So now you just have this freelancer guy that's declining, and he's also pouting when he catches one ball for 9 yards and a loss. It's not Dak friendly, and I think that's why they moved on.
So that being said,
and the $8 million they saved.
I'm going to say
that's also a very
bloated contract, diminishing returns, a game that relies mainly on athleticism more so than being a technician, and then on top, like all the stuff that made him charming when he was an All-Pro becomes problematic. Like, you skipped your MRI because you were afraid of what it would say. You're late for meetings. We're worrying about you more than we want to. Like, it's charming when you're catching 16 touchdowns. It's not charming when you're catching 6 and catching one pass for 9 yards and stressing out the quarterback and all that type of stuff.
And I also feel like there were times where, games where he didn't have a lot of catches one game, and there were a lot of even, targets, and then he would say something, and then the next game, surprisingly, Dak would throw him 14 balls to him, but he only caught like 5, and it was forcing it just because I think there was times Dak just felt like he had to get him the ball, whether he said that or not, that would happen. Mm-hmm. So I just thought, overall. And the Cowboys made a mistake, too, because they thought that their offense would be fine without a lead receiver, and it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And they fixed it, but with Cooper. But they did. It was some ego going on there. Sure. Like, we don't need a guy like this.
Yep.
That's why it's interesting to me that he's been so open about wanting to come back to the Cowboys after like a breakup like that.
Well,
but also,
I don't know.
There's documentaries on 30 for 30 on guys. He might need money.
I don't want to complete I don't want to. No, and I don't know. I think
guys get out sometimes and they realize. You talked about it earlier about self-awareness. You think everybody will want me, so go ahead and release me. I'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And then you get out there and you're like, this market's not as lucrative as I thought it was. Not as many teams see me as highly valued as I see myself, right? So all those things start to factor in. And now, especially after having, sitting out the time he set out, getting signed, and then having an Achilles injury, now having to work back from that Achilles injury, right now he's probably having to really push to get any team to take him seriously because of his age and because of his injury.
Yeah, and he's also putting stuff out on social media, and they say that phrase, tape don't lie. It doesn't. And
I agree with you on that.
And this will go full circle on the whole thing, what Jerry said. I was also told later that day Jerry hasn't seen those videos. He hasn't. He just knows Dez as he knows Dez. I think the people that are in the building have seen it, and they think this isn't really
I think fans look at that and they're like, oh my God, Dez, it's Dez. And as I was looking at it, I actually called a friend of mine who used to do scouting type stuff, and he was like, yeah, I'm not so convinced that he's in shape. No, I shouldn't say in shape, that he's actually better than he was before. And I don't think he's even close to where he was before.
Like Twitter.
And by the way, he never was a great route runner. Like, he never was a great. At the height of his career, he wasn't a great route runner.
Isn't he beating his Twitter followers? Isn't there some?
What do you mean?
Did I dream that? Maybe I did.
He's beating his Twitter
I thought I saw where guys have called him out and said hey, I could beat you, so they go up there. And
so the people that are actually the people that are covering him are fans. Those are fans covering him.
There was a guy that called him out, and then they went and he did abuse him 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, but the guy was probably in high school or college.
I don't know. But then that led to more people. My kids. And it's meet you here.
Of course, you got to destroy them.
I actually asked Jerry, I was like, didn't the sort of toxic nature of the breakup, didn't that sour you? Do you think it could, you feel fine with that? And it was a great answer. He was, he was like, it wasn't that way for me. Me and Dez are cool. Mm-hmm. But he ended it by saying the best of Dez is the way that I remember him.
Right.
And I think there are people further down the line who know what he is right now.
And there is not a more Jerry statement than that.
Yeah.
Because any of Jerry's former players Jerry believes the best in them. It's the reason why we see so many players around this building, not players, former players, who are still around this building. A lot of them had questionable moments in their lives, and he still has them around this building and around this organization because Jerry believes the best in his players.
It's also why the team struggled so bad in the late 90s and in the early 2000s, because he was giving contracts to players for what they had done and not what they would do. And by the way, going into that number, I remember in 2000, the salary cap was $63 million because 21 of it was dead money. And that was Dave Campo's first season. Good luck, Dave.
Woof.
$63 million.
Here are the keys, buddy.
Yeah.
All right.
And in 20 years, it's going to be what is it? Cap 250?
It's two something right now. But if the new CBA goes through, it's going to jump into the 4s and 5s and
this is gonna
in
be
20
crazy.
years.
It's gonna be so crazy.
It's
but
amazing.
I've been here long enough to know better than
My
to
salary hadn't jumped that far.
No, mine neither.
Really?
Can we
No, it
can we
hasn't.
do some work on that?
Well, mine did. I didn't know we all
damn.
did. No.
Okay, cool.
Nice job.
I've been here long enough to know not to completely rule anything out. But I don't think that that's happening with Dez. I just don't.
Yeah, I can't see it. I honestly can't see it. And I think that this is a typical Jerry's going to always believe the best about his players, and that was what he was. That was the frame of reference that he was speaking when he had the glowing things to say about him. But I'll be shocked. Honestly, I will be shocked if Dez is on a roster in the NFL when the season begins. I think his best shot will be season begins, get into the season, team has crazy injuries at wide receiver, and they say, hey, let's give it a shot. Same way it happened with the Saints a few years ago. You kind of just have to wait and see how that plays out, and then he may get an opportunity then. All right, let's take our final break. We'll come back. We got to talk about Byron Jones and his contract. We'll do that when we come right back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now, you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
Whether you're into being a part of this or more into something like this, SeatGeek has the tickets to the events you love. It's the easiest way to find, buy, and sell tickets. Plus, with their deal score technology, they'll recommend the best seats in the house at the best value. So the next time you're craving this, download the SeatGeek app and let's go. SeatGeek.
I'm Jay Novacek, former tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Back in the day, I was the guy who always got the tough yards, and that's why I run with John Deere today. In fact, I have a John Deere 3025E tractor that can handle any yard work I need to do, even the tough yards way out back. So if you have 1 acre or 1,000, John Deere has the equipment that's just right for you. Visit a John Deere dealer today and run with us. We are the official tractor provider of your Dallas Cowboys.
Your new apartment's big. Such a great deal.
It's okay.
Just okay? What's not to...
Right above the subway!
Well, I bet you don't even notice it after the...
That's my neighbor, Angus.
A deal that's just okay is not okay. Get a great deal with America's best network. Come into an AT&T store to find out how to get one of our popular smartphones for $0 down. Based on GWS 1 score, September 2019.
Back to the break.
Welcome back. It is the final segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. Let's jump right into Byron Jones. Jerry Jones said during his time with the media last week that there will be challenges in bringing back Byron Jones. Again, nothing that we didn't know. What are your thoughts on where they stand with Byron Jones? I think we all kind of know it's probably not going to happen, right?
Yeah. I think that I just don't feel like the Cowboys think that he is going to be worth what other teams do, you know, and that's wow. I'm breaking news there.
Yeah.
That's what free agency is. You know, they just don't feel like they can. It's not that they don't want him. I think they value interceptions more than that, and that's what it sounds like when we got to talk to defensive coordinator Mike Nolan.
Mike Nolan,
sorry,
yeah. Mike, you're good.
You know, I feel like it's not. they don't value him as high as maybe the market will. So
it's too many free agents, not enough money. It's interesting their thought process behind that decision because so many of their defensive backs are free agents. And not only that, but who's going to be your starter? I mean, like, do you trust Cheeto after the way he played last year or Jordan Lewis? I guess maybe they have their eye on people to go after in free agency or maybe the draft. That was just an interesting, I'm like, well, they must have some plan if they aren't very hopeful of bringing back Byron. I guess I don't know how confident I am of what we have right now for what the future likely holds.
I'm gonna pick up the mantle for Cowboys Twitter because this is a debate that's been raging, and I don't know where I come down on it because it's tricky. Like I think you're making a grave mistake if you measure Byron Jones purely by the amount of interceptions that he gets because Bob Sturm, all credit to him, he found the stat among cornerbacks that were targeted 50 times or more last year. Only Richard Sherman gave up fewer passing yards. Byron Jones is credited with allowing, I believe, 329 passing yards on plays where he was targeted. That's crazy. And there's something to be said for, no, he doesn't get picks, but he also doesn't give up a ton of big plays or big gains, and he's just reliably there. Hasn't dealt with a lot of injury issues. Had a very good season considering he did not have an offseason or a training camp at all. I don't think that gets talked about enough. And on top of that, if the new CBA is approved and these salaries jump the way that you're supposed to, why can't you sign all three of these guys? Like, is there really not enough money, or do they just really not value what Byron Jones brings to the table? And that's, sorry, not to cut you off, but I think that's something that teams do all the time where they're like, well, we can't pay everybody. It's like, no, you can. You just don't think signing him is that important. And that's your right, but those are two different things.
I want to see what do they do with the money. Because if they go out in free agency and they go sign Chris Harris, let's say, then I'm going to say, basically what they said was if we're going to pay top dollar, we want somebody with a better proven track record, right? I'm okay with that. If they don't sign anybody, if they just sign Anthony Brown and they say, hey, we're going to roll this out and we're going to see how this works with Anthony Brown and Cheeto.
And the draft pick.
But depends on where that draft pick is.
Yeah, we don't know
if you're
where
going to make
that
that your
pick
top
is.
draft pick and he turns out to be a really good player, then to me, I feel great about it because what they said was, hey, we think Byron Jones is a good player, but for that level of money, we think we can get comparable services for less, right? And that's where I want to see what they do with the money and what they do this offseason. That'll let me know whether this was whether I agree with the thought process behind it.
I'm completely with you because I said that on Twitter. Is at the end of the day, I'm okay letting Byron walk because I have optimism that they will do something meaningful with the money. That money helps you bring back Robert Quinn. This is ideal. Well, it helps you bring back Randall Cobb for that as well. But then I would hope some of that money goes toward a good defensive tackle, not Stephen Paia from a few years ago, not Nolan Carroll at cornerback. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Chris Harris because that could be a huge contract.
True.
But a guy who's done it before. Same thing with safety. There's 9 million experienced safeties out there, from HaHa Clinton-Dix to Rodney McLeod to Trey Boston. I know I'm forgetting a couple guys, but there are options there. Mm-hmm. And if you're not going to bring back Byron Jones, that money could turn into probably 4 players who are good enough to start for you and really start. Again, we're not talking about Nolan Carroll. Better free agents than what we've been used to. If you're going to do that with the savings, let him walk.
Right.
But if you're going to let him walk and try to bargain hunt this thing and then shoehorn your 17th overall pick into starting right away at cornerback, I think that's a recipe for not being as good next year as you were last year.
I agree. I'll also throw this. I want to get you guys' feedback on this. Obviously, Byron Jones did what he did. You threw out the numbers there of kind of how he performed this year. In spite of that, the Cowboys' defense was what it was, which I don't think any of us agree that it was a good defense. Is this maybe a situation where the Cowboys say, for what he does, it still doesn't make a big impact on our defense? We really need a cornerback who can get his hands on more balls, because otherwise, if we just have a guy that can basically, even if you say he can take away half the field, we still got so many other problems that our defense, we really don't get the benefit of having that guy on that side because it's not really leading to us having a good defense. What do you think about that?
I still just can't figure out what happened with the defense. It wasn't, statistically, it was up at the top. It was 6th or 7th in yards allowed. They just couldn't get many turnovers. They weren't even, they were kind of in the middle of the pack in turnovers. Their linebackers played well at times, but not as well as you thought they would play. They got some pass rush with a guy like Quinn, but not as much as you thought from, I still don't know. I can't put my finger on what happened there. But to answer your question, yeah, he's a good player, but he didn't help the bottom line of the defense. So I agree with Dave. If you're not gonna, if you're gonna just let him go and kind of like they did a few years ago at receiver and just think they can piece it together, it's not gonna work. However, I'll say this: he can be coachable. We've seen that. He can go from safety to corner and make it an all-pro. If you love these corners, these coaches, Al Harris and Marisa Lindquist, maybe they can help him be what they wanted, what they want for a cornerback.
I would like to see how scheme changes this stuff, because I just looked it up. Ironically, Brandon Carr didn't have any picks for Baltimore this year, but he had 6 in his first 2 years, and that
in Baltimore,
which. He couldn't get one to save his life the final 2 or 3 years he was here.
And he had 6 the first couple of years when he was in Dallas, right?
Yeah, well,
I feel like he had.
I remember that big Pittsburgh game. I think it was.
He had three each his first 2 seasons. Then right around the time the Marinelli scheme kicked into gear, it dried up. Which I don't mean to throw dirt on Rod Marinelli. He's a fantastic coach, but how much of it is scheme and how much of it is player? Have the Cowboys really just not employed a cornerback who's capable of getting an interception for the last 5 years? I don't think I believe that. So I'd be curious to see what Byron would do somewhere else, or what he could do here. It doesn't sound like he's going to be back. I think there was even a report that he thanked the Cowboys for helping him get to this point. It sounds like everybody's in agreement that he's going to move on, and I don't hate it. But I will hate it if they don't do something with the money that they're saving, because he's a damn good player. And to that point, I think when you bring that up, that they were still a bad defense, it's like Patrick Peterson's been on a lot of bad teams. That doesn't make him. He's worth the money, or he's a declining player now. He's getting older, but he's been one of the best in the league for 10 years. It's not his fault he's on a bad team,
and that all makes sense. I guess what I'm saying more is it a situation where for our currently constructed defense, he may be a really good player, but to pay him that much money means that we can't pay some other positions where we make the whole thing better.
Yeah.
And we may need to say, hey, let's spend a little less there so that we can maybe get that defensive tackle, maybe get that safety, maybe get that game-changing linebacker. Whatever the case might be, what are the things that we're going to miss out on if we have to pay now a large contract, a maximum-type contract to this cornerback position?
I'm 1,000% comfortable letting him walk if it means you're significantly upgrading safety, D-tackle, bringing back Quinn, all that stuff.
Right.
But it's on them to do it. Okay, they've been reluctant to. That hasn't been their MO for a while.
But it also forces them to do what they don't like, and that's you've got to go into a draft, probably needing a cornerback. And they could have done that even if they re-signed Byron Jones. You still think in your first 2 days, first 3 rounds, you're going to probably need to get a corner because you got 2 next year that are free agents.
But that's also where I look at what Dave was saying about some of those other cornerbacks that are out there in the free agent market. I'd be looking at one of those guys. Maybe not the top guy. Maybe it's not Chris Harris. Maybe it's one of those other guys that are a little farther down that I get him. I get, maybe you go back in on Anthony Brown, and now that gives you a little bit of wiggle room. And so you're not forced to take a cornerback. If it falls to you, great, but you're not forced to take a cornerback at a specific pick in the draft.
Maybe we're comparing apples to apples.
In what way?
Eli Apple.
No.
I think it's okay. It's interesting. There are bridge cornerbacks here. I think Byron is the only guy out here that screams 5-year mega deal, because you're talking about Josh Norman.
Yeah.
Chris Harris is another one that could get a good deal, but Logan Ryan.
And his age will be a factor for him.
Aqib Talib, Prince Amukamara, these are all guys that you could sign to a 2 or 3 year deal to cover you. Mm-hmm. I hope Anthony Brown is in their plans.
He is.
Okay.
I guarantee he is. And I've said this before. That is my pick for the first player signed on March 18th.
I can already see the tweets.
Oh, they'll be.
You know how that goes.
If you could get Anthony Brown back and then a bridge veteran, Jimmy Smith from Baltimore is available. He's old. He's had injury issues. Older, I should say. He's my age.
You're getting up there.
I know, it's all relative.
But
you're getting up there.
Anthony Brown and a bridge veteran with a draft pick. It ain't going to be
corner, by the way.
I can't. No, I can't. No, I can't run a 40-yard dash. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be.
I'd love to see that.
I would love to see
it. You
it.
never will ever. It wouldn't be the best cornerback group in the league, but I could feel all right about it, especially if Robert Quinn's there and maybe you sign a good defensive tackle to help you anchor that down. And there's ways they can make it work. They just got to be willing to spend the money that they're not spending on Byron Jones.
All right, we appreciate you guys joining us. We're back next week. We'll have more talk for you guys here on The Break. Till then, for Nick Eatman, Dave Hellman, Danny Sarek, I am Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!